Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm excited about the next guest. We're going to talk to David Thompson, who covers NC State for the USA Today Network. David, what's going on, man?
Oh, just living the dream. Another Monday. We're kind of hit the halfway point of the college football season, and a lot going on.
Yeah, it goes fast. We say this all the time. You wait for training camp and it gets going, and then all of a sudden, right, like you said, midway point. So NC State, 5-1, 2-0 in the conference. I've had a chance to watch two of their games that I want to get into. I saw the Clemson game and then the Boston College game this past weekend. David, I want to get your perspective on this because at Miami, we're talking a lot about, toughness and lack of tackling, a lot of these issues that are happening at Miami. And when you watch NC State play, they seem to have this physical brand of defense and on offense as well, some toughness. And I think Dave Doran, kind of taken pride in that. Can you speak on maybe where that's coming from? How, maybe if you have any stories about that and kind of this team that they have right now?
Well, I think, Dave Dorn's kind of entire his brand that he's tried to kind of implement onto NC State has been, we're a blue collar program. We put our boots on. He's gotten into TikTok, and he did this whole TikTok where he was looking for shoes to wear, and he was like, these Nikes, no, these Air Jordans. Then he pulled out his boots. He's like, oh yeah. And I think that really kind of sums up what they're trying to do. They come up, they work 9 to 5, and they're going to put in, that kind of work, that sort of toughness. And I think that's, been really endearing to the fan base, but it's also really worked out well for this team. They're not extremely flashy. There's no, when you look at you look at these guys, you're not like, oh, well, here's a Heisman guy or here's someone else. It's just a team that plays, as he says a lot, complementary football. And I think that's what you saw against Boston College. They really put together 4 quarters of complementary football, and that's you went from 10-7 to 31-7, which is not something you usually see NC State do. But I think obviously the strength is the defense, and yeah, it's a lot of sure tackling. It's not giving up points. It's playing really well in the red zone. It's just a really well-rounded team right now, and I think that's not something this year we're seeing as much in the ACC, and I think that's why they're kind of one of those contenders, which I know 6 weeks in, normally NC State is not one of those teams, but this is it's a weird year.
For sure. And I think, like I said, I've only seen the Clemson game and the Boston College game. Maybe take me back to that Mississippi State loss. I know they looked good in the opener against USF, but the loss to Mississippi State, kind of what went wrong in that one? And then where do you think the biggest strides have been made to get to this point with where they're at right now?
Yeah, I think that was one of those games where they came in, so confident after South Florida, but that's South Florida, right? They're 45-0. They're like, okay, we can handle this. Mississippi State, first play of the game, hits him in the mouth, like 99-yard kickoff return. You've got those cowbells going. I think they kind of, what's the movie, The Replacements with Keanu Reeves? That scene where he's like, you know what, I'm afraid of quicksand. I think, and they're like, oh yeah, man, quicksand, this stuff's crazy scary. But I think it was one of those quicksand moments where before they knew it, they were just, their head was below the sand, and they just couldn't really dig themselves out of there. And I think there's also sometimes on the offense and defensive line, this size difference between the ACC and the SEC. I think that's where you kind of see the difference. And they just couldn't get the running game going. It was just a real struggle. And I think obviously a really big concern at the time, but I think they really pulled it together. They lost 2 really important defensive starters there. Peyton Wilson's all ACC guy, and then Cyrus Fagan, who's a Florida State guy who already had come in, was playing really well. And still, even though it's kind of funny, although he's out with an injury, he has become the ultimate hype man. I posted a video on Twitter of him just running around screaming before the Boston College guy. He just comes out like, I think I'm going to talk to him today. I was like, are you injured? Because you sprinted out. He still brings so much energy, but I think they really had to take a look at themselves, at the kind of team they were going to be afterwards. But, then they got to play a team like Furman, figure things out. And then they had the gut check game against Clemson where they, history was, they were the better. Clemson is not that good this year. I think we've seen that, and in multiple ways already with their offense. Their defense obviously very good, but their offense just is not what it was with Trevor Lawrence. But NC State really had to like not just beat Clemson of that year, but they had to like really get rid of their entire history. I mean, it was such an emotional, physical struggle to win that game. And I think once they did that, they were kind of like, okay, we believe. And I think that's what you saw against Boston College. I think that's even what you saw against Louisiana Tech, who was better than I think most people thought they were. So it's just, we always forget that these are 18, 20-year-old kids, and confidence is a big thing. And that's what they have right now.
I think just speaking on that, staying with that confidence thing, I think on the reverse side, I think Miami is lacking confidence. I think that they're not getting the results. I think you're starting to see similar to NC State on the opposite side with momentum. You pick up some momentum on NC State, and now Miami's got this negative momentum kind of rolling. They're sitting at 2-4, 0-2 in the conference. It felt like Coach Diaz really felt defeated after that last one. Tough loss. They're just losing to close games now. After getting blown out early in the season. So it's just kind of a combination. They're starting to get some injuries. So I thought it was interesting, and I don't pay too much attention to betting lines, but it did open up as Miami as 2-point favorites, and then it swung heavy. NC State's going to be about 3.5, looks like right now favorite. And I noted that because I feel like kind of listen to Dave Dorn, just kind of, they're taking on that underdog mentality. It seems like, so even though they're 18th in the country right now, like you said, the good record, you speak on their mentality. They'll be favored in this one, expected to win this one, especially even though it's at Miami, but just maybe that mentality that NC State has. I know you spoke on their toughness a little bit earlier, but do you feel like this is, they still feel like they're slighted a little bit, or they're maybe it has to do with, like you said, not super flashy at times?
I mean, I think that speaks to the history of NC State. The expectation is that they're going to lose at some point. That history says that a good NC State team is going to find a way to lose a winnable game. And I think that everyone looked at Boston College as said a road game, a night game against a pretty solid Boston College team who had Clemson on the ropes, at Clemson. They're like, this is the moment. And then NC State comes out and truly dominates, especially in the second half. And talking to Dorn and some of the players afterwards, they're like, people don't think we're good, and we're not sure what we have to do to prove that, but it's like, who cares? All we have to do is win. All we have to do is take care of our job. And I think, although Dave Dorn is a very, he doesn't give a lot away emotionally, but there's a few topics where he kind of, one, if he beats Clemson, you will see him with a red Solo cup and a cigar, and he's going to let it all hang out. But when you talk about that disrespect, I think that gets to him. And, especially being kind of the little brother to UNC and Mac Brown, even though they're having, a much more successful year right now, I think it upsets him, but I think he also knows it's a really great narrative for his team to, that brings a group together to say, people don't believe in us. We have to believe in ourselves. That makes that locker room really tight. So I think that's something he knows internally that he needs to push out there to the media. It says, no one believes in us. Look, we'll talk to him a couple hours and he'll say, did you see that? Did you see the betting line? People thought, this is a 2-4 team. They think they're going to win. He's going to push that narrative because I think he knows it's good for his team. And I think he's afraid that they're going to start reading the headlines. Oh, we're a top 20 team. Oh, we could win the ACC. I think that's probably his biggest fear. So it is a little surprising to me. But I also, I started working on this beat midway through last year. Actually, my first game was the Miami game last year, and I saw De'Aaron King, and I was really excited to see him play again because it was my first game covering college football, and I was like, whoa, this guy is real. But I think now I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I think now NC State's just in such a good place, but they're going to really have to fight, like I said earlier, not just their opponents, but kind of their history of expectation.
Yeah, and that's kind of where my next question, when you talked about De'Aaron King, and I think that's, for people that remember this game last year, if you don't, Miami escapes 44-41 with a comeback win. Mike Harley had that big catch, but that was the game De'Aaron King had his best game of the season. Over 400 yards passing, 100 yards rushing. Really good performance by De'Aaron. He's obviously out for the season. They look a lot different with Tyler Van Dyke, and I know that people, Miami, they're trying to pick out moments with Tyler that you've seen in the last 2 weeks, but there's also been a lot of negative moments, and you saw it the way it ended with his third interception. I thought it was interesting. The narrative from Coach Diaz and Van Dyke was, oh, it was a tip pass. It happens, kind of unfortunate. Well, he was getting tip passes done all throughout the game. I think that's an issue for whatever reason. I think either he's just not thrown in the right lanes. Typically, you don't see 6'4" quarterbacks really struggle that much. But I think it's an issue. I think when you watch NC State, they do a good job at the line of scrimmage, kind of getting their hands and being disruptive. So that issue is going to have to be fixed. Also in that game, Devin Leary did not play. I thought NC State was a different team without Leary, and I think you're seeing it this year, his impact and just things he's bringing to the table. So let's get into this NC State offense. And Devin, your thoughts on Devin, and maybe what is it about him that the team just seems to be playing better with him, and obviously skills and stuff, but maybe what kind of guy is he, a leader, that kind of thing?
Sure. I actually think that's, one of his greatest attributes is sort of that off the field stuff. He's a true leader, a guy that, people really rally around. And right now he's doing the opposite of the Miami quarterback. He's not making that big mistake. In the last 4 games, 12 interceptions, or 12 interceptions. Ooh, that'd be tough. 12 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I don't think they don't expect him to go out and normally win games. They expect him to game manage, not make the big mistake. Even though, I think he is, even passing expectations right now, just for the way he's playing, the way he's throwing the ball. He's giving his receivers the opportunity to do impressive things. I don't know if you saw that Devin Carter catch, which I've watched it like 10 times and I still don't quite understand what happened. It's like, it almost looked like a Madden glitch where it like went through the BC defender's body or something. It's very weird. But I think he's that guy that you can really, rally a locker room around, especially with the way that he supported his teammates last year being hurt. He didn't disappear. He really stayed there and just gained a lot of respect and a lot of love. And he's just playing well. I think it was going back to that Clemson game. I had a conversation with him and we talked about kind of the legacy and just, what he's meant to the university and what this game could mean. And he just talked about how he's worked on just being calm and not, overdoing the moment, remembering that football is fun. And then he went out there and threw 4 touchdowns and played the game of his life. And no matter what he does for the rest of his career, he'll have that moment, and I think having that in his backpack now, he's just playing calm, confident, and is really making good throws. And I brought that up to Dave Dorn on Saturday. I was like, he's not making mistakes. And Dave Dorn's like, not everyone knock on wood right now. Don't be saying stuff like that. So, I think as long as he avoids those big mistakes, that offense really will continue to roll.
And obviously, he's just a different quarterback than what Miami's seen in their first 2 ACC games, facing Armstrong at Virginia and Sam Howell there at North Carolina. He's not that dynamic of a quarterback. He's not going to necessarily, make all those throws that those two can make, or Sam with the running ability that we saw last week. But like you said, the stats speak for themselves. He is, it seems like a lot of underneath stuff, but he'll push it downfield. Like you said, on the Carter, it was crazy catch and touchdown, but he did push the ball downfield. And then, had that other really nice throw there in the end zone. And like I said, the Clemson game, you keep talking about it, touching on it. Look, the way that they fought back in that one, and I know they missed a couple 50-yard field goals, but missed that, 39er there at the end, and then trailing it over, and at that point, yes, maybe you thought Clemson wasn't as strong, but I think it was kind of that game that really, you start to see some issues. And I think with Clemson, because of some of the things NC State was able to do. So earlier when we talked about toughness and physicality with NC State, obviously on defense, but on offense too. I know the running backs, they run tough, but with Leary's got the weapons at receiver, and both those guys played last year against Miami with, all 3 of them actually, but just with Emeka, just things he's bringing to the table, and Devin Carter, both 6'3" guys. Miami does not have one of those on their roster for their own sake, but the physical, just the ability to win one-on-one battles. Both guys seem impressive. And then Thomas obviously can provide stuff there. What are you seeing from the receivers, with Devin's targets, how they're playing this season?
Yeah, and I think you're right to say a lot of his Leary's success has been underneath, 8-yard, 12-yard passes, that kind of thing. And using the height and physicality of guys like Emeka and Carter. He's had a lot of success with the jump balls. And then I think kind of, having Thayer underneath, obviously had a 79-yard touchdown. But that was just one of those moments where people ran into each other and all of a sudden there's a lot of green in front of you. Not that anyone's complaining about that, but that's not really the norm. But yeah, there are a lot of targets for Devin Leary, a lot of places for him to go. And, he's not going to obviously run like Sam Howell, but, he can turn, a potential sack into 6-yard gains. And he's good. He's gotten, I think his alarm clock in the pocket has gotten better. A couple seconds in, he starts to look around, he starts to move where he's taken sacks in the past. And I think that's helped him a lot. I saw that at Boston College a lot, where he's gotten the happy feet, where he can move out of the pocket and he can make some space and make some throws. And I just think, once again, it's just been the lack of mistakes. There hasn't been, he's not giving other offenses short field. They're able to put drives together. They had, what really, we talk about the third quarter, but what really happened in the end of that second quarter, they had a 70-yard, 16-play, 5-minute drive at the end of the half that ended up in a field goal, gave them a 10-7 lead. And that was some of the most balanced I've seen them with the running game, with Ricky Person and Zonovan Knight, and just the little underthrows and throwing the ball out of bounds if they needed to, and just playing really smart. And it's just a very balanced offense right now. And I really do think that the success of this team goes through their 2 running backs. And that was the big issue at Mississippi State when they're averaging 1-2 yards on first down. It really messed up their offense. But when those guys get going to it opens up so much of that playbook.
And with those running backs, Person and Knight, there both ranked in the top 8, top 10 in the ACC in rushing. Miami fans, if they hear that, they're thinking, okay, is it going to be similar to that NC game last year with Javonte Williams and Carter? They're not that dynamic of running backs, but they're still that physical guys. It feels like their run schemes are very well, molded for those guys. It seems like they know what they have in them, physical runners. It feels like kind of what you said about the short passing game. It feels like they're always kind of getting positive yards. Maybe it's 4, 5, 6 yards, 7, 8, and they can certainly break bigger runs, but tackling has been such an issue for Miami all season long. I don't see why it would just all of a sudden get corrected. But these guys, and I think too, in watching NC State, it's going to take 4 quarters for Miami to pull this off. NC State's been down. Like you said, the Boston College game, it didn't look necessarily great at times, but they just kept coming. And then the avalanche happened there. And I think that's the thing that you're saying with Wolfpack is just that they kind of keep coming. This running game, you touched on it just a little bit, that you think is kind of where the offense is, keyed. Talk about more about these 2 backs. Miami fans saw them last year. They did play against them. And then also the guy you got over there at left tackle with Ike Ekwonu, just the hype coming into it, that he's certainly a very good offensive lineman. I don't think we've not been disappointed by the things we've seen from him. I know the Boston College coach raved about him. I think called him the best one that he's seen on tape this year. Maybe his impact and just his, I know he's played a little bit of guard, but just being able to kind of go to tackle and then seeing him kind of move a little bit, almost like a pulling guard sometimes. It's really impressive watching him.
No, Akeem he's a huge beast, and obviously they run to the left side as much as they can because he really just sets the tone. And he's absolutely an NFL guy. You just look at the way he plays that position, and he's pretty incredible. And they would be, why would you not run towards that side? And it's a huge problem. And I do think that, Miami is obviously every team has struggled against him. We're going to find out later today, one of their guards, Chandler Savala, who's a Division II transfer, but has really played well. He did not play in this past game, and so there's kind of an undisclosed injury. We're a little worried that this may be like a season-ending thing. So curious how that's going to affect the line. But with Ricky and Zonovan, it's like you said, they're not doing like the 80-yard breakouts, but they really wear down a team. And you start to see that in the second half too. And they've got their nickname. It's, we thought it was going to be, they wanted to come up with a nickname, and it's going to be like, we thought it was going to be Thunder and Lightning, or, with everyone calls Zonovan, it's Bam. So we're going to call it, we thought maybe it'd be Bam Bam or something, but instead they went with something from Friday. I think they're like Craig and Day Day, which totally, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I didn't really see that one coming, but it works. But they are very complimentary backs. And I think what I've seen a lot with the offense is they start a lot with Ricky Person. They kind of wear him down there, and then you get a heavy dose of Zonovan Knight in the second half, and then you start to see those 4-yard runs turn into 12-yard runs. And I think the offensive line too wears them down too. And yeah, it does all start with Icky, but just all down that line, they played together a lot. They're a pretty cohesive unit, and I feel like I just keep kind of saying this over and over, but they're just solid. They're just a very solid team, and I think they're a very good team right now. And I know that's such like a that doesn't really give you much, but there was a moment during the Boston College game where they were playing hype music in the middle of like the second quarter, and Boston College team's kind of sitting there, and you look at the NC State's sideline, and they're just hype, dancing, waving towels, and you're like, that's a team that really likes being together, that's enjoying the game of football, and that's just super happy to be there, and is ready to win and likes each other. And I just think that's such a undervalued thing, is looking at the cohesion of the locker room. And I know that's a huge part with what's going on in Miami right now. It's like, how long is Diaz going to stick around? I know the running back, Cameron Harris. Did I say that right? I know. Cameron.
Out for the year,
out for the year. Not having De'Aaron King. I mean, there's a lot going on there, and I absolutely expect Miami to come out and give NC State their best shot. But you just wonder how much they can kind of take, and how much they can bend.
And I think that's kind of, ultimately the biggest thing to watch for in this one. Again, Miami's. Just the results have not been there. They've lost a couple of close games. You kind of worry about a team falling apart. And I think we've seen that at Miami. I think everyone's kind of you almost feel like that's going to happen more than it just automatically gets turned around. And certainly we'll see how this thing goes. And I think too, just, with what NC State's bringing to the team or to the defense, I think Miami, the last two, I touched on the quarterbacks being a little bit different that they've faced in Virginia and North Carolina, but the defenses too. North Carolina didn't have a great defense. Virginia did not as well. And now you're flipping it to playing a tough team that's good defensively. It feels like, and watching them, it feels like all three levels are good. It feels like they can get it done at the defensive line. It feels like the linebackers are solid, even though they lost Peyton. And I think, in the secondary, the stats are really impressive. In the secondary, leads the ACC in interceptions, second in pass efficiency defense, leads the ACC in completion percent allowed, and fourth overall in passing yards. So what's going on in that back end? And I'm curious, I want to get your take though. Where do you think NC State's best group is? Where do you think it is on defense with those three groups there?
It's crazy to think you lose your best defensive player, Peyton Wilson, and still I'm thinking the linebackers are that best position group. You got Isaiah Moore, you got Drake Thomas. They just play. Not only they play like ferociously and they're great tackles, but they just play also. They play very smart. They help out so much in coverage, but they can help out a lot with the blitz as well. And I mean, that's where those are the two of their defensive captains. That's where they get a lot of their leadership from. It's just a really solid group. And, it starts from there, but the defense has become really opportunistic. And I think that's what's going to be a huge problem for Miami is they will convert on those mistakes. They're going to grab those tip balls. They're going to create those tip balls. I mean, you got now Corey Durden, Daniel Joseph on the ends. who've done a really great job of getting to the quarterback. So for Miami to stay competitive, they're going to have to limit their mistakes. And I think what I'm hearing from you is that's their mistakes are their big issue right now. And I think the secondary has had issues before. And I think sometimes you get the mental errors, from a guy like Tanner Ingle, who will come in and literally try to destroy you and your family when he tackles somebody. But sometimes he's not, he's not really thinking with his head, and he's leading with his head, which has been a problem in the past. But yeah, it's a defense that, you look, they gave up 7 points in the first possession against Boston College, not another point. They're playing their best right now, and besides losing Cyrus and Peyton, not having to deal with any injuries yet, that defensive line is staying together. And I think the way that the linebackers, particularly Drake Thomas, has stepped up without Peyton Wilson has been really impressive. So, that's the success when the star of this team is that defense. The offense, very consistent, it can drive the ball down the field, but that defense is, if they're going to win, if they're going to win the Atlantic Division, if they're going to go to the ACC title game, it's behind this defense.
And with those linebackers, and Miami fans are going to notice this if you haven't seen NC State play, but the linebackers go 236, 238, 245 pounds, a lot bigger than what Miami's thrown out there. And I think the size is going to step out, and the way Isaiah Moore has been playing has been pretty impressive too. That defensive front, with that three guys up front, what's making them so effective? And Miami's going to have to figure out a way to run the ball. I know they want that balance. I've talked about that all season long. They do want balance. Cameron Harris, as you mentioned, out for the season. So to go with Jalen Knighton, and he's a smaller back, played well against North Carolina, the 2 rushing touchdowns, and catches a 60-yarder. I think that 60-yard reception for a touchdown is exactly why people have been excited about Jalen. Just that potential, the essentially one cut, split it and go, and he's off to the races. And I think that Miami's going to need some of those big plays from somewhere, and I think that they're going to hope it's Knighton. But facing that 3-man front that NC State, and I know they show blitzes a little bit sometimes. They'll bring a couple guys in on the edge, so it looks like a 5 or 6. But those 3 guys up front, the challenges that they've been presenting teams. What do you see there?
Yeah, I just think that when you're playing with 3-man front and you're still getting pressure on the quarterback, is huge, and it allows you to do so much more in coverage. And I think occasionally, they have struggled with the running game. Even the first half against Boston College, Boston College was running the ball pretty well on them, and I think they made some adjustments and sort of dared the Eagles to throw a little bit more. And they said, okay, we need to stack the box just a little bit more. But yeah, I just think it's the amount of pressure that they're able to get that allows the linebackers to do more things in coverage, to spy a little bit, and mainly that's what I think is going on is just the pressure that they're and the way that they're playing in the running game as well. I think they're just playing good assignment football, and everyone's doing their jobs.
And I think you touched on that touchdown. Boston College certainly running the ball, but that touchdown comes in the red zone to a tight end. I think Miami would certainly like to maybe exploit that if they can, but they are getting not much production from their tight end and Will Mallory. It's been like that all season long. It's been one of the disappointing things about the offense. Certainly, I still believe Will has skills, but they're just not going to him. He's not getting open. He is on the field quite a bit. It's been essentially puzzling why he's not been involved in the passing game more. And certainly he's had his drops at times, but it's going to be interesting. I don't think there's any question if these two teams play like they have all season long, NC State's going to win the game. Miami's going to have to figure out a way to play better than they've shown. Tyler Van Dyke's going to have to settle down. I think from a Miami standpoint, you're looking at, okay, you're playing at home. Miami has played better in recent years at home. They're typically of a college football team, but this isn't going to be a warm crowd. It's not going to be one of these crowds where everyone's really pulling and really excited for the home team. I think I think it could be sparse. I think if things start out bad early for Miami, I think you're going to hear the boos. I think that's where this program is at right now, and they're gonna have to figure out a way to overcome it. The injuries are piling up, and now the losses. It's just a bad combination. And you touched on with NC State dancing around, excited with how they're playing, and teams are certainly going in different directions. And Miami's going to have to figure out a way to kind of stay in it, understand that NC State's one of those tough teams that's going to play throughout. And it's going to be interesting. And again, I said before the North Carolina game, I felt like Manny Diaz, these next two games are going to be key. I think some fans thought Manny would be let go after the NC game, but they're only 0-2 in the conference. This would a loss here be 0-3, 2-5 overall. This is another crazy thing. Manny Diaz 0-6. Miami's 0-6 in the last 6 Power 5 conference games. It's not just high expectations at Miami. These are unacceptable results at a lot of places in the country. And again, from that first season, I think things are just piling up for Diaz. Now it's just a kind of a mess right now from a Miami standpoint.
All right, man. I'll see you in Miami. Oh, last thing. I'm going to be there Friday through Sunday. I need some food recommendations. What do you got for me?
Food recommendations. There's plenty to check out. Depends if you like, seafood. And obviously I'd kind of steer people towards the beach. Go check that out. It's clearly a ways away from the stadium. So there's different things there. I think there's a lot of things. I'll send you a message. A lot of different things to get.
We'll go offline for this one.
Yeah. And also there's a lot of variety. I think that's what's great about Miami, different kind of things you might like. But yeah, I'll definitely send you some stuff, and yeah, definitely safe travels and enjoy the game. We'll see you Saturday.
Well, man, appreciate you.